split a car in half in Formula Renault, but apart from that, I've been fine. I go for the gear lever to try and get the car into neutral again, and then I look in the one existing mirror that was still upright, and I see that the engine and gearbox are about 50 yards behind me in a different smoking heap. So yeah, that was a relatively large one. I crashed at 250 kph at Le Mans. That was quite big, but in terms of injuries, I've been okay. I'd say that the first big rival that I had was probably 2010 in Jules Bianchi. Not as a rival in such as you know, bad competition. He was my best mate in a team. We got on so well, but in terms of somebody to, you know, push myself against, he was a rival in that respect. He's someone that I massively respected, somebody that was the best of our generation, and I was put into the same team as this guy that was incredible, and I had to try and cope with his speed, and that's why I would say that he was my first, probably and biggest rival and biggest mentor in a way as well. I learned so much off the guy because his speed was next level.
The first big accident, which was the only time I roll over, you know, in the go-kart. It was in the Brazilian Championship of go-kart, 97. I remember I tried to overtake two guys, and the second one just closed the door. I roll over, you know, I jump, I passed over him, and then I roll over. And I remember so well since like if it's yesterday, you know, that I have this accident. I have another one which was 2009 in Formula 1, which maybe everybody remember, when I just took like a spring in the Hungary Grand Prix, and that was for sure the biggest accident I had in my life, in my career. I have the helmet, yeah, and the helmet's still full of blood. You know, I put in my apartment. I have this helmet, like the way I took it after the accident. I have the same there in the important area that of my house. Yes, I have many drivers that I was fighting in my career since I remember in the go-kart when we started. I think the main driver that I was, you know, always wanted to fight, always wanted to win. Actually, he didn't become a Formula 1 driver. So he's a professional driver for go-kart until now, and so his name is Andrani Castro. He's the driver I always wanted to win and always wanted to be in front.
I'm not recalling having such a massive accident. Obviously, as a race car driver, I'm pushing the limits, you always have crash, but I never had a crash where I was in pain or I had to go to hospital. So I feel quite lucky. I never had a massive crash in my career, so I'm good. I think the biggest rivalry I had was with Robert Vickens in World Series by Renault, and that was in 2011, just the year before I came in F1. So it was either him or me winning the race, and it was a very close battle until the end. And it is a year where I really enjoyed, where we really pushed each other to a level that we probably did not expect.
When I signed my contract with Red Bull back in 2004, I knew that if I would perform, I would get the opportunity to drive a Formula 1 car, or, you know, to become a professional driver. I suppose in go-kart, you know, I rolled a few times, but maybe the first time it happened to me, I was, I don't know, 8 or 9. Remember my mom, she was a bit shocked.
I think the first time I realized that I can be a racing driver was when I signed my first professional contract, and that was when I was 18. My first crash was in karting. I rolled the kart twice, and then I got stuck under the kart. It was in a race, and the race was still running, and I remember that my father was running onto the track and helping me to get out of the kart. That was probably when I was 10 years old. I remember that in my first ever karting race, when I was 8, I got pole position, and then I got pushed out in the first corner and stuck under the barrier. So that was the end of the race in turn 1. And then the next race I won. So yes, I won my second race.
I mean, the first time I realised that I could have a potential career in motorsport, it wasn't until really late, because you never know what's going to happen in this sport. Come about 2009, 2010, you start to think, okay, you know, I'm at a level now where I could become a professionally paid racing driver with a career and a future. But before that, you know, you're working your way up through the ranks of this sport. It's very different to other sports. The ladder up is a different way of doing things to, say, football, cricket, athletics, all of them, but I've got there, and I now have my place in motorsport, which is good. My first win was at Brands Hatch in Formula BMW in single-seaters. That's when it was, in 2005. I was under pressure from Jordan Wise, a good friend of mine called Jordan Wise. He was racing at the time, and I was not used to winning. I wasn't used to leading races. It was daunting leading. Now, leading, I like to lead and I like to get out and do my own thing, but back then it was like, oh, I'm in uncharted territory. I haven't got a car in front to chase down, and what's this like? So it was a very different feeling, and I felt very under pressure to win this race. And once I won that one, I went on to win 5 in a row. So that was like, it opened the door.
My first victory was in the rain. On my first year that I was driving the go-kart. So it was maybe my 4th race. It was raining and I managed to win. And I remember so well also my first race, I finished 3rd in the podium. But then 4 races after, I managed to win for the first time in the rain. And yeah, I remember so well. This was 1990, so actually, my first year in go-kart.
I remember the first time I got into a go-kart was at my parents' circuit next to Paris, and actually was very afraid of the engine noise. I ran away. The kids nowadays won't have that problem. The time in my life I realized I could make what I love a career was when I got in the Red Bull Junior program when I was 17 years old. And this is the moment I came back home and told my mom, okay, I stopped school, and I give it everything I have into this chance, and see if that plays out. Hey, it worked out okay. I guess my mom is not too pissed off anymore. I stopped school. Yeah, I remember my first win was in a small village north of France. I don't even remember the championship, how it was called. I was 9 years old, and it was quite special because for 1 year, you know, you always try to win, and at that moment, you know, you got the click and you start winning, and then it was, you know, 1, 2, 3 races win, and it was the start of a winning process, and I start, of course, feeling different about it. So, yeah, I remember like if it was yesterday.
First major heartbreak in racing, probably losing. I led the championship pretty much all the way through, and I lost the championship by 1 point at the final race of the year. And that's when, that year, I thought I was just going to win it, and it was done, and I had my name on the trophy. I was very naive and very, I think I was a bit big-headed back then, and I kind of came crashing down, and losing that championship, I think, did me a lot of good and made me grow up quite a bit.
Yeah, I remember when I was 13 to 15, I was in a category where being high didn't really help. And I think the best result I had was 15s, or not even 10s. It was like 2 years of nightmare, crossing the desert. So this is when you lose all confidence, and especially you're young. So this is really at this age that you know, you make a career or you don't do it. So it's been a bit of a difficult time, yeah.
I have both things on the same time, you know, a victory, which I won the race, and I lost the championship by 1 point, 2008 in Interlagos, in my home Grand Prix. Maybe that was, you know, you feel both on the same time, you know, because you win the race, home Grand Prix, but you lose the championship by 1 point, not because of yourself, because of what's happened, you know, on the the fight from the championship. That was a nice feeling by winning, you know, doing amazing weekend at home, but losing the championship by 1 point.
I think losing the Formula BMW championship, you know, after the race, you know, by the steward, got penalized and basically lost the championship. So I was something like 15, and yeah, that was the first time, you know, I had lost fair and square. You know, I had not lost much in go-kart, so that was really the first time.